হিন্দুদের নিয়ে, হিন্দুদের জন্য, হিন্দু লাইফস ম্যাটার নিয়মিত ভিডিও পেতে চ্যানেলটি সাবস্ক্রাইব করুন এবং পাশের বেল আইকনটি প্রেস করুন।
নমস্কার সুপ্রিয় দর্শক, আপনাদের সকলকে স্বাগত জানাচ্ছি হিন্দু লাইফস ম্যাটার ইউটিউব চ্যানেলে। আশা করি আপনারা সকলে ভালো আছেন। ওয়েলকাম টু দি ইউটিউব চ্যানেল হিন্দু লাইফস ম্যাটার। হোপ ইউ আর অল ওয়েল। টুডে we will discuss understanding jihad is our topic today, and we have our guest Dr. Professor Rinita Mazumdar. She will talk about her research on jihad, and I hope that we will know what is jihad. We have a different analysis, different perspective, different understanding about jihad, and we will go in depth with Dr. Rinita Mazumdar. First, I would ask her, and I would welcome her to this show. Welcome, Dr. Mazumdar.
Thank you. Namaskar.
Thank you for coming here. And please, first, before we go on to the topic of jihad, I'd like you to introduce yourself to our viewers. Talk about yourself, who you are, where are you from, what do you do. I know you're from Calcutta, and you attended Presidency College in Kolkata, and also had your PhD in University of Massachusetts in Boston, and now you are a professor in New Mexico. So besides that, please briefly talk about yourself.
No, actually, I got my PhD from University of Massachusetts in Amherst, which is a little south of Boston. So Boston also has a University of Massachusetts. Before that, I got my second master's in Canada, Brock University in Ontario, and before that, master's in Kolkata University. And then I also have a master's in psychology. And my area of research is gender and psychoanalysis. This is a more or less recent research because I became interested in gender. I started researching about women's condition in Islam, in Islamic countries rather, not in Islam, because it's a very studying any religion takes a lifetime. And my degree is in philosophy, my PhD, and I also have a degree in psychology. And so all this came together. Right now, I'm a full professor at the Central New Mexico Community College and an affiliate professor of women's studies in the University of New Mexico.
Oh.
So that's more or less my background.
Okay, very well. Thank you. Very accomplished women. Congratulations.
Thank you.
We are proud. Bengali women pursued higher education, got a PhD, teaching people. This is our pride. Anyway, Dr. Mazumdar, we learned jihad. What is jihad from you today? I know you did extensive research on this, so please tell us what is jihad. What do we understand by jihad?
Ajay, first of all, do you want me to speak only in English or between English and Bengali?
We can have, because our audiences are, both Bangla and English.
Yeah.
I mean, mostly
in English, yeah.
Bengali, mostly Bengali, but there are educated listeners, there are educated viewers. I believe that we have a very educated viewership, so we can do in both. Yes.
So first of all, I have to be very, very upfront about this. My research is very limited because it's so vast, so complex, that it involves not only study of philosophy and religion, but also study of history, sociology, psychoanalysis, and so forth. And so from the very beginning, I have to be very careful about, saying my knowledge is really limited. But and the other thing is, my knowledge really comes from, because I like original sources, from original sources which are in translation, because I don't read the original Arabic. And in translation, many things get kind of distorted. That
Yes,
is
you lose
how
the
you read
you
it.
lose
It
the
lose the thing, yeah.
yeah.
So I have read the Quran in Bengali, in English, and I have put the Arabic, the classical Arabic again is different, side by side. So I will tell the audience the little that I know, which is really very little. So first of all, the word jihad comes from the word jahada, which means strain, exertion, endeavor. In Sanskrit or Bengali, it would be cheshta, kriyota, or something of that sort. And W.E. Lanes, who is a researcher in the Middle East theology and so forth, has a quotation, and I'm going to directly quote him. The using or exertion of one's utmost power, efforts, endeavors, or ability in contending with an object of disapprobation, namely a visible enemy, the devil, and oneself. So there are three things here. And I'm going to go through each of them. Lane says, according to Lane, it is a moral religious duty of every Muslim.
Okay.
So, jihad evolved out of intra-Muslim conflicts, and there are certain terms that we have to understand before we go into the depths of jihad. Yes. Do you want me to go through those terms?
Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, so there is jihad bi al-nafs, which is against one's sinful inclinations. Suppose I desire food that's not good for me, it's sinful in some ways, or someone trying to have sexual desire towards a child, that's child molestation. So it's a jihad against one's sinful inclinations. That jihad bi al-nafs. Then jihad bi al-saif, which is the jihad of the sword, which is how it is used now mostly. Then jihad al-qawl, which is the preaching of the tongue. It is the same, in Christianity there's preaching and so forth, it's the same thing. Bilad sa'iba, which is ungoverned land. Now, land is divided into two parts. One is ungoverned or uncivilized, and one is civilized. This is somewhat close to the social contract theories like Hobbes, who was writing in the 15th century, that which was his justification for colonization. There is a state of nature and a civil society. People come from the state of nature, ungoverned land, bilad sa'iba. So you come from the uncivilized state of nature to a civilized society by imposing Islam. So it is actually, jihad in this sense is a colonial rule. It's a colonization. So then the Mujahideen, the reformer who appears at the beginning of each century, it's not like the avatar of Sanatana Dharma or Hinduism. That's a very different concept, and I'm coming to that. So then there is Tajid, which is the reformist activity. Then Nask, or abrogation, which is the classical Muslim thought is reconciled via conflicting text, because all these texts have different interpretation. But you reconcile them through this Nask. Fi Sabil Allah, fighting in the service of Allah. Dar-ul Islam, which I think most of you know, which is the land of Islam, which is governed. Darul Harb, which is the land of the other or ungoverned. Dar al-Shurk, the land of truce, in between. Dar al-Harb, the land of pact or covenant. Takfir, anathemizing fellow believers. Saif al-Haq, sword of truth against the non-believers. Now, the one thing is, according to Khwaraji, who is a Persian theologist, jihad is actually the sixth pillar of Islam. It is a sixth pillar, so it's part of Islam. This interpretation is not accepted by everyone, but it is becoming more relevant, at least in the African context where I did my research. So it's Saif al-Haq, truth of sword with non-believers. Now, Muslims are supposed to live in Dar-ul-Ad, not permanently, but temporarily. For example, this is Quran Surah 49700. For example, someone living in the United States, which is a Darul Arb, would be living there not permanently but temporarily. They can live there with a conscience of performing the hijrah or migration, keeping the prophetic example, Usha Khanasa, to prepare for a military jihad. So ultimately, everyone has to come to Darul Islam according to this interpretation, provided they live there temporarily, then they do a hijrah, go underground, then come back and wage the war. Is jihad a moral duty? Yes. In most interpretation, it is a moral duty of every Muslim, like the appearance of Mahdi, which is a divinely guided one. Now, the Mahdi is not the Mujahideen. The Mahdi appears at the beginning of every millennium or so forth, who does the guiding. Now, most of the controversies that I will talk about later on is about who the real Mujahideen is. And I think, and I'm not sure, this is my interpretation, that the Taliban and the ISIS, their difference is who the Mujahideen is really, who's the leader. So it's really very political in that sense. So there is a limited truce. Darul Islam will cover Darul Shok, and Abu Allah Maudadi, who is another interpreter, says this, and I'm quoting him: Islam is not a religion, but a revolutionary ideology and program which seeks to alter the social order and re-establish it in conformity with its own tenets and ideals. And I have read Marxism thoroughly because I'm also a feminist scholar. I mean, I've written books and so forth, so I had to read Marxism thoroughly. It's almost like that. So it's not what we would call in Buddhism or Hinduism or Christianity a religion per se. There's salat and all of that, but it is mostly a revolutionary idea, social transformation. It's a social political transformation.
Okay.
Now,
So let me we hear this law, many kinds of jihad, but what people say about jihad, and when I use one of my title that love jihad, and people got so upset, and a lot of people were screaming and saying that how dare you use the word jihad has special meaning, jihad is special thing, this is like a internal battle, it is internal battle within yourself, যে আপনার নিজের ভিতরে আপনার যে সংগ্রামটা আপনি চালান নিজেকে পিউরিফাই করার জন্য, আপনার এই মানে আত্মোপলব্ধি, এইটা হচ্ছে জিহাদ, তারা যেটা বলতেছে আর কি। বাট আপনি যেই ডেফিনেশন গুলি দিয়েছেন, what the definition that he gave us, it points that jihad is nothing but external expansionism instead of internal. Internal in that sense that it invigorate you that to fight, to do something hard, but it is not within Islam. It is overflowing Islam and attacking the other religion. That's what I see. Don't you see that way?
I would say that there are three different meanings. What you just said, people say that it's a fighting against your own inclination. It is jihad bi al-nafs. That's the Arabic word. It's fighting against your own inclination. But jihad bi al-saif, which is the mostly used, which has been used, is the fighting against unbelievers. And that is the moral duty of everyone. It's not fighting against yourself, but fighting against unbelievers.
Not against your own demons.
It's your own demons, but fighting against others, because see, all unbelievers are considered evil. So by definition, it's an essentialistic definition from what I understand. Again, I said my study is in English, and English and Arabic, and I know translations because the Bhagavad Gita I read in Sanskrit, it has a different meaning. However well you translate it, is a different meaning. And so jihad bi al-nafs, jihad bi al-saif, and jihad al-qawal, which is preaching. In the African context, when jihad al-qawal didn't work, they went for jihad bi al-saif, and they quoted some scriptures saying that it's acceptable when preaching doesn't work for people to convert from their evil state into a pure state, then you can use the sword. but there are different types of jihad. So definitely jihad be al-saif is the jihad of the sword that's there, which is most prevalent in colonizing forces. Like in Africa, we have to understand something else, which I don't know if we'll have time to go in, that jihad is very much connected both to slavery and racism.
Okay, how? Explain it. How is it?
I mean, I'm
Is it-
explaining it.
Is it
So,
is it against the racism and slavery, or is it
no, I'm
supporting
explaining.
slavery and racism?
It is supporting, actually both are used, because you
Because
cannot.
I hear that they are the one that came to this world, unified everybody, poor and rich, and
That is the moral high
Muhammad
ground.
became an emperor.
See,
There is no color line, there is no gender line. They gave rights to everybody. That's why this is
yeah,
what their
it's
explanation is. So
yeah,
explain that they are
yes.
jihad is supporting slavery and racism. I mean,
It is supporting both, so we'll talk a little bit about that. So in the ideology said that there are jihad is the sixth pillar. First of all, that's one of the views. And then who do they define as infidels? The dhimmis are the protected minorities. Who are the protected minorities? The people of the book: Jews, Yehudis, Christians, and Zoroastrians. But what do they do with the polytheists? Say, I'm talking about African context where my research is, who are pagans. For them, this the racism, because see, without racism, you cannot colonize people. I'm reading something.
yeah.
There is a story in the Genesis, and we know that Quran is very much related to the two other books, which is the Old and the New
Yes.
Testament. According to the story of Genesis, Noah, remember Noah's Ark? Noah's son Ham saw him naked. Noah got drunk. He was sleeping, drunk. And Ham, his youngest son, saw him naked. And he came and told his brother Shem and Japheth. This is from the Old Testament. And that father is sleeping naked. What they did is they took a cover and they covered him walking backwards so that they don't have to see their father naked. There's a whole psychoanalytic theory around it also. I don't want to go there. It is too complex. And then when Noah woke up, he cursed Ham for seeing him naked and said that your children will be black and slaves. Now, what's very interesting is, see, there is another thing. Islam is as ethnocentric as other religions. It's not universal. It's colonizing force made it universal. It is very much connected with the Arabic culture. So there was a riot in Swahili when one preacher said, no, the prophet is actually Swahilian. He's not Arabic. And there was a riot. So actually, Islam is ethnocentric in the sense that it is connected to Arab, like, somehow Indus Valley is connected to Sanatana Dharma, and people can deny. So it's not that universal. So I'm just saying, so what the Arabs did is the jihadists, I won't say Arabs, the jihadists constructed the Arabs as descendant of Shem and Japheth, Shem, who are white, and the Turks and Slavs as descendants of Japheth, who are both white, the first two sons of Noah. And they constructed the Copts of Egypt, the Berbers, and the Indian Sindhs as descendant of Canaan. Canaan is the youngest son of Ham, who was black. And hence, they said these are the people on whom Ghazwa can be performed. What is Ghazwa? There are three ways of obtaining slave. One is by birth, which is also something Aristotle says. One is by in war. In prisoners of war become slaves. The other one is Ghazwa. Ghazwa is raiding communities to get slaves. And the descendants of Sindh, it says very clearly Sindh, and I'm interpreting here Sindh as the entire land beyond Sindhu. It's not just Sindh, entire land beyond Sindhu, which is the Indian subcontinent. So Berbers, Copts, and Sindhs of India as the descendants of Canaan the Black, and hence proper for slavery because they are black. See, here is racism. You cannot deny it. And I'm quoting something from, and I'm directly quoting this from the Spanish Said al-Andalusia. He had says that the blacks had never made use of their mind in seeking wisdom or hikmat. Hikmat is the Arabic word for wisdom, and exercised themselves in the study of falsafa, which is philosophy. This is from Arwin, African Abroad, a documentary history of black diaspora. That's why the Arabs said that black slavery is actually moral, because they're descendants of Ham, Canaan, who is black, who committed a sin, and therefore it's
Okay.
this is the
All right.
so
You dismantle their pretty much their argument that
I don't know if I dismantle, but this is there.
they treat all equally, which is not true. But okay,
No.
now the oft-used term, love jihad. Okay, we hear it a lot. Okay, we sometimes hear food jihad. We hear other kind of jihad too. But is love jihad a jihad?
I think in this case it's very much complex, because patriarchy is involved here, and as a feminist I don't want to say it has to go case by case. The whole point is, when you marry a Muslim, a Muslim by law cannot marry a non-Muslim. You have to convert. So whether someone is converting out of love, which is possible, people fall in love, or whether someone is being converted and then cheated on, that is very difficult to say. I say in this case, we have to go case by case. We cannot put a blanket term that all interreligious marriages are love jihad. It is, but then in a lot of cases, in most cases, young women are very vulnerable. In most cases, and that's irrespective of religion. Muslim women, Hindu women, Christian women, they're all very vulnerable, especially when they're teenagers. And it is possible that they fall for it. It's also not possible when they're older, they have more knowledge and so forth, then they come as equal. So I really have to do more research to make a comment on that.
So although this is not literally love jihad is a jihad, but it's a jihad in disguise.
See, the one thing is, in Sanatana Dharma, there is no such thing as conversion. When people say they converted to Hinduism, they're going back to their spiritual roots. That's what it is. It's not really conversion. You're going back to your original roots of spiritualism. So that's one thing. But in the monotheistic religion, especially Christian, I don't know about Judaism, but Christianity and Islam, there is an institutional version of conversion. Now, if that is so, then when is it again that whole problem in feminism? We talk about what is consent and what is coercion. Men can also convert under coercion, or they can convert under consent because they'll get something out of it. When someone is in power, I know a Vietnamese, he converted to Christianity because he says it's easier to live in the United States if you're a Christian, although this is a secular country. So I don't want to comment on love jihad because it's so complex and it has to go case by case. But it is possible. Women are very vulnerable, especially young women.
Yeah. Okay, you said that there is no conversion in Sanatana. Yeah, that's okay, that's good. But there is a kind of turf battle. It's so silly. Like how many people on whose side? This is how they are counting their faith. That is the argument they are basing their, the validity of their faiths. That we have so many people are converting to our religion, so ours is true.
That is why Plato and Aristotle said democracy is mobocracy. Just because someone elected a popular ruler, Hitler was also elected popularly, but that doesn't mean that he was a great person. So just because a lot of people run after false gurus. Now, when I said there's no conversion in Sanatana Dharma, people can go back to their spiritual roots like Sukarno Putri did in Indonesia. She converted back to her original spiritual roots. You can do that. And I think it's a little bit harsh to compare Islam, Majab with Sanatana Dharma or Christianity, because one is 6,000 years old. They have experienced, they've gone through violence, non-violence, and then they have reached what they've reached now. The high stage of Shankaracharya's Advaita Vedanta, they didn't happen in one day. And these are young religions. Can you compare a 52-year-old man with a 14-year-old teenager who is hot-headed and thinks he knows everything? So one cannot compare something who is there and
Yes, that's
it's just that's the tantra literature, which is
it's not even comparable.
It's not comparable. Tantra literature has feminist theory, homoeroticism, homosexuality, everything. I mean, tantra
And
literature.
then so much rigidity. Sanatana is giving you the vast latitude of,
You
avenues.
can choose from a platter. You can be.
Even you are given the freedom to not to choose, to not to
You
believe.
can be an atheist. I need a Shankho. যেমন আমি নিজে Shankho. I believe in Shankho because it's feminist also. Purush and Prakriti, same. And when they go, so it's Nirishwarbadi. I am not. I don't believe in like creator God or anything. You can be
And then the other side, there is no no fluidity. They don't let you out. Only way in. You cannot get out. All or none.
Yes.
It's a zero-sum game.
And I'm realizing why Marxists kind of fall into the jihad is because Marxism, not so much Marxism to some extent, but Leninism, they are also very rigid. You can't have anything. There's no pluralism there. And this whole concept of you go to the hijra, you wait and then you attack, and it's very much like the Marxist concept. And I myself was a Marxist for a long time. I was very much in the left liberal in my young days when I was in Presidency College and later on. Then I realized the logical flaws, and comparing Islam to Sanatana Dharma is unfair, I think. 52-year-old man and 14-year-old boy, can you come? It's not fair.
All right. So, we are talking about like 20 plus minutes. We want to finish. We are almost to the end of our conversation. So tell us about, I know a lot of women and girls will be watching, and what do you have to say to them?
আমার প্রথম কথা হচ্ছে নিজেকে এম্পাওয়ার করো। এডুকেশন, এম্পাওয়ারমেন্ট, আর যেখানেই থাকুক, ইভেন বাংলাদেশ, ইন্ডিয়াতে, সেখানেও শিক্ষা, এডুকেটেড গেট এম্পাওয়ারমেন্ট। অ্যারিস্টটল থেকে চলে আসছে যে মেয়েরা একা করতে পারে না, কিন্তু করতে পারে তারা। আর সনাতন ধর্মে তো ইটস আ ফেমিনিস্ট ধর্ম বাই ইটসেলফ। কোনো ধর্মে নেই তন্ত্রটা। আর সবচেয়ে কি ইন্টারেস্টিং, হোয়াট ইজ ইন্টারেস্টিং ইজ হোমোইরটিসিজম ইজ অলসো দেয়ার। শিখণ্ডী বলুন, মহাভারতে, যে দিস আর পাওয়ারফুল হোমোইরটিক ক্যারেক্টার্স। যেখানে একটা প্ল্যাটারে শুধু ভেজিটেরিয়ান ফুড আছে সেটা অপ্রেসিভ, যেখানে শুধু নন ভেজ আছে অপ্রেসিভ। কিন্তু সনাতন ধর্মে ভেজিটেরিয়ান, নন ভেজ সব কিছু আছে, ইউ চুজ ইয়ার ফুড। কিন্তু একটা হচ্ছে নিজেকে এম্পাওয়ার করাটা ভীষণ ইম্পর্টেন্ট। সে যা পরে লোকেরা চুজ করে পার্টনার, কেউ একা থাকতে পারে না। আওয়ার লাইফ ইজ ভেরি মর্টাল, না, দিস আর্থ। এইটুকু সময় আমরা তো পৃথিবীতে থাকবো, তারপরে তো থাকবো না। সবারই সঙ্গী দরকার, দ্যাটস লেটার। বাট ফার্স্ট এম্পাওয়ার yourself. Give yourself value that I can be alone, I can be educated, I can survive alone. এবং তার জন্য there are government schemes try to, এই অমর্ত্য সেন যেটা বলেছেন, কেপেবিলিটি, নিজের কেপেবিলিটিটাকে স্ট্রং করলেই আই থিঙ্ক, তারপরে এইসব কোনটা লাভ জিহাদ কোনটা নয় সেটা তো পরের কথা। দ্যাটস আদার।
এবং এই সনাতন ধর্ম আপনাকে এম্পাওয়ারমেন্টের অনেক টুল দিচ্ছে, আপনাকে ফ্রিলি থিংক করার,
এবং নিরীশ্বর হলেও, আমি তো নিরীশ্বর, তাতে কিছু এসে যায় না। সাংখ্য তো নিরীশ্বর, তাতে কিছু এসে যায় না। তন্ত্র তো পুরোটাই ফেমিনিজম। পৃথিবীতে কোথাও আমি দেখিনি ভাজাইনা ওয়ার্শিপ আছে, যেটা তন্ত্রতে দশ মহাবিদ্যা যেটা। সো ইউ ক্যান এম্পাওয়ার ইয়োরসেলফ, ইউ ক্যান বি আ সনাতনী অ্যান্ড এম্পাওয়ার ইয়োরসেলফ, বি আ ফেমিনিস্ট। এতে তো কিছু এসে যায় না। কিন্তু ওই আমি একজন পুরুষকে ছাড়া আমার জীবন বৃথা, ওটা করলে তো এক্সপ্লয়েটেড হবে। তো ইটস লাইক মাস্টার স্লেভ, যেটা অ্যারিস্টটল।
তো ঠিক আছে দিদি, থ্যাংক ইউ ভেরি মাচ ফর ইউর টাইম। আপনি ভেরি বিজি মানুষ, আপনার স্টুডেন্টদের নিয়ে ক্লাস আছে আমি জানি। সো এতক্ষণ সাথে থাকার জন্য ধন্যবাদ। আবার আসবেন। হ্যাঁ, তো ভালো থাকবেন।
আবার কথা। আচ্ছা, থ্যাংক ইউ, নমস্কার।